So hello and good morning or good evening or good day rather to the Improvement Season podcast. This is me, Pascal Steve. On the other end, it is my boy, Steve Hall. So Steve, how are you doing now at an older age? Like 1 week has passed ever since then.
Yeah, it's I feel incredible. I feel I don't like, man, some people are really good at when they're on the spot. I'm just going to say Mike, for example. He can just say something hilarious as soon as you ask him something like that. He'll just come out with something completely absurd. Whereas I'm just like dumbfounded. All I can think of is like rational, normal answers. Like, I feel the same, Pascal. I'm like, damn, that's such a boring response.
I'm unfortunately the same. I always admire those people who are very, so on German we say schlagfertig, when you just immediately have a proper answer, which is also then a little bit funny and all that kind of stuff. But often it's like this, that you're looking back and you just wish that you had said something differently.
Yeah. So, but I have noticed over the last few years, the main thing I've noticed is more grey hairs. Like I used to have, like it used to be like novel that there was like one or two like grey hairs. And now I'm like, now I just have like, I don't know.
Do you have already grey hair in your beard?
Oh, yeah. I think I already had maybe some grey. Yeah, I think I have a few grey, not much in the beard. It's mostly, it's like rusty.
I have one.
Orange. One?
Yeah, exactly here. I can clearly see it because it's so wide, actually, in comparison to everything else. I'm just like, what is this?
That's what, actually, mine are like white. I'm quite happy. Like, I'd be good with like silver fox kind of hair. Yeah.
So that's the dream, right? That you're then becoming this type of older individual who doesn't really have that shabby grayish look, but more so like Gandalf the white, you know? That's
maybe
the dream.
I'll just dye it. It's fine. No one will know. No one will know.
Exactly.
How's things on your end?
Yeah, good. I can't really complain. No, honestly, also when I'm recording like voice messages at the time right now for you, I really don't have anything to say. Whether this is a good thing or bad thing is up to the listener. I would say it's a good thing. Right now, at least. Yeah. And I've been just thinking about it the other day that I haven't had, or there was now a longer streak where I didn't really had any kind of major injuries or so. I mean, I'm still suffering from that ankle stuff, but you know where I'm coming from with this. Like ever since I was recovering from that type of stuff, I haven't gotten injured. And that's good, I think.
Touch wood. Yeah. How's the chest, actually? We haven't talked about that for ages.
It's good. It's beautiful. Beautiful titties.
You haven't done like a physique update, like, I mean, the last one was all like bruised, was it? Or
yeah, but I mean, I have like a picture already up over on Instagram where I have then the upper body posing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful titties. Beautiful titties. I if I may say so myself. No, they actually look very good. But I have a check-up appointment in, I think it's the midst of June that I actually made that appointment because there's still a little bit of swelling, especially on the left chest. And I think that, so when I rub this part, it feels a little bit numb still. Oh. And I think that was already the case when it was right after the surgery that there's a seroma there. So just like fluid retention. And I thought that it's going to dissipate over the next couple of months. 6 months now. Well, it's 6 months now. And they normally say like that it takes like 6 months to see the end results. And I can still see that it's like a normal chest here. And then it has like kind of a bump, as if it's another chest on the chest. And that's kind of the case a little bit more so on the left chest rather than the right one. But the right one has it as well, just a little bit. But especially on the left one. I think on the right, it's normal. But on the left one, it's actually quite pronounced. And I just want to check whether we need to actually then remove the seroma, so the fluid in there that you just like, I don't know, drain it or so.
Well, that's positive, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, does it ever? Do you feel like it's it's giving you what you wanted from it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Funny that you're actually bringing it up because I think it was a couple of days ago. It must have been a couple of days ago. I actually then once again said to Katie like how happy I am with the end results, and that it was such a great decision. That it was worth the money. It was worth the process of going through it. I feel so much more confident Honestly,
That's
I feel
awesome.
so much more confident. And also, my chest looks now like someone who lifts. And that is something, it's so weird. I can't really put it into words, but it just makes me super, super happy. Because I'm happy now to take my shirts off. Of course, still, it's a little bit of an annoying with then the lower section where then the skin is also kind of lapping over my pants due to the excess skin there. But that's something that I think I'm more comfortable with than the chest.
Sure.
In an optimal scenario, of course, everything would be kind of as you imagine it to be. But considering the circumstances, I am very, very, very happy with the outcome. And considering how much of a fuck up it was at first that I needed to actually get back into the hospital setting on the same day and then bash my head against the wall and all that kind of stuff in the moment, and then also with the bruising and all that kind of jazz, right? In that moment, you didn't really think that it will end up being the way that it is right now. But just those kind of things, they always take a little bit of time. And I think you're often in that type of scenario whenever you're going through a major illness, injury, or whatever. You often assume that things will never be the same. And more than likely, it's going to be the same as before. In very rare circumstances, unfortunately not. But then you just hopefully adapt to the situation.
I think an easy relatable scenario probably for people is like contest prep or something where like you feel like you're not the same person because you're like we've said before, you're apathetic, you have no libido, you're more moody or whatever, and it's like, will I ever be the same? Yeah, I mean, once you're well fed, you'll be like the same very soon. Yeah. But I'm super glad to know that like it's all been worth it. That's awesome.
The thing is that I've over the past couple of years, I've gotten more and more relaxed with nearly everything in life. It's probably the age related. But one thing that I really now took on board for myself and also then communicating that to my athletes is the thing that Scott Stevenson brought up. And funny enough, on one day, I heard it on 3 different podcasts. And that
all Scott.
No. It's not just Scott, but other people. And it was just so weird. But the saying about this too shall pass. And was so the saying in it for itself, I think is so strong and powerful because if you have that mentality, right, then you can overcome basically everything. In my opinion. And it was then especially weird because I heard it on 3 different podcasts on the same day. These are one of those occasions where you then tend to believe in certain things or so, right? Because it's just like the coincidences and stuff like that.
And I'm guessing these weren't all fitness podcasts either.
No. That's the weird thing about it. Ever since then, I haven't really heard that saying anymore, right? And it was just like very weird. But yeah, that is something that holds true with so many things. And I took it really on board in communicating that to my athletes and also applying that to myself because there are so many things where in the moment it's a little bit of a discomfort or even a big discomfort. But in the end, nearly all of the things that we do, right, or go through, they pass. Right? And even if it's like some of the worst things that happen to you in your life, often time is on your side when it comes to dealing with things. And at the same time, it isn't on your side because we all have a limited time frame here on Earth.
It reminds me of a book that I've just started listening to. It's actually on YouTube for free, so if people want to listen to this, it's called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. And one of the things he takes you through is like, I'm barely through it, but it was like, what am I worried about? What can I do about it? Decide what I'm going to do about it and do it. That kind of step through.
Isn't Dale Carnegie also the author of How to Make People Like You or something like that? I
think How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think he might be.
Yeah.
Which I think I don't know if I have. it's a book that I feel like I must have read or like I've heard at some point, but I can't remember anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many books, and that's also, I have the feeling with a lot of content out there already when it comes to YouTube and stuff like this, that we don't really take the time to really learn about the things that we are reading or consuming anymore. It's like we are learning by the magnitude of stuff. At least that's nearly the case for me. We're barely ever sitting down and just like reading a book, sitting down, thinking about it, and try perhaps to make some notes so that I'm then capable of actually explaining it to someone else. I'm more so learning by just consuming on a continuous basis and getting that through repetition, basically.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're then only listening or reading a book once, then often you will not be able to repeat everything that has been said there.
That's like, that's why I always like to take notes or highlight within the book. It's like I could revisited David Epstein's book. What's it called again? I can see it over there. The Sports Gene. There we go. I should remember what it's called because I've just I just refreshed myself going through it all and like reading the highlights. I was like, oh yeah, he said that. And then I listened to him like on a podcast, and like slowly it's like drilling itself into my head after the repetition and like trying to get into it more. But you're right. Like you read a book, it's like, oh, that like unless like you think about revising, I just had to reread the textbook, rewrite out the textbook, like read the textbook to myself, like over and over and over.
That's why I also do think that hustle culture, who's then promoting reading a ton of books or kind of, I don't know, bragging with how many books they've read. Props to you, but did you really get anything out of it? Or is it just like for bragging's sake? Did you really sit down and take some notes? Because the thing is, when we just take a look at analytically speaking, when it comes to learning things, the vast majority of people learn the most if they use a lot of senses. So they are reading, they are maybe listening to it at the same time, and they are taking notes, right? So that you're using a lot of a lot of things in order then to be able to really, really ingrain the newly gained knowledge. And then trying to repeat that to someone else or trying to explain it to someone else. And if you can't do that, at the most of the time, you haven't really understood it. And if you're then just like consuming stuff, have you really learned anything, or is it just something that you've just consumed? And I fall victim of that myself. I've listened to plenty of books over on Audible. And even if you're now asking me like, okay, can you talk about one section of this book? And it's like, I don't know, 1 or 2 years ever since I've listened to that, I couldn't. And that is awful if you really think about it.
Yeah.
This is then just like consumption of something rather than learning of something.
This is, it's the difference. And it's like you said there, whenever, like if there's something I want, sometimes I'll do it. I imagine it annoys Charlotte a little bit, but if I really want to ingrain something in my head, I have to take someone through it. Because it's like you said there. But once I've taken someone through it, I'm like I weed out the bits that I don't understand and I reinforce the bits I do. It makes a huge difference. But yeah, that's why I stopped my subscription to Audible, because I would just walk and listen to this thing and I'd just be doing other stuff or distracted. I'd like walk, 20 minutes. I'd be like, oh man, I don't remember what I just heard for the last 20 minutes to rewind it. And it's just, it's an efficient way to get a lot of books in, but not necessarily a quality way to do it. Like reading and highlighting for me is great, or like making notes.
And to be fair though, the way, once again, that I now learn about things is just by repetition most of the time. I'm listening to the same topic over and over and over again. But this is also something that you can apply to other things in life. Learning by repetition, right? It's kind of related to something like training as well. You at the beginning, you go in there, you think that you have it all figured out. In reality, you have nothing down yet. And then over time, you get better and better and better at it. While then still always revealing new things to learn about, or things that you want to improve upon.
No, absolutely. I think even with like programming, for example, like I don't know how much I've learned, like really learned over the last 5 years. I think a lot of the things I knew back then, I still know now. I just know it so much better that like when I program, I'm so confident and it becomes fluid and it's just habitual. Whereas before it's like, let me revisit the textbook or whatever, and this, and I had to think so much harder about what I was doing. Whereas now it's like it's just something you do, and it's just simple. Like, and
no, absolutely. And I think that there's definitely some value in that as well, because in the past, I won't pretend as if someone is always asking us that question, because that's often not the case. But sometimes we did get the question of like, what are we listening to? How do we further educate ourselves? And I think that we even made an entire episode around this at some point. And right now it's just by working with athletes most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not really listening to any kind of podcast anymore or anything alike. It's just working with my athlete, because they are my source of education, right? And I'm learning the most by just doing the things with them and just observing things.
That is the majority of mine as well. I actually find it hard to sit down and like read a textbook, because in the past it was like exciting and it was kind of new, whereas now it's just like, like, I know. So it's really hard for me to sit down and like read that. I can read like The Stress of Life, for example, because that was all kind of new, exciting. It kind of looped into the stuff I know. And then with podcasts, like I can't listen to something like Danny Lennon and Sigma Nutrition. I probably find that quite hard now. Whereas I kind of go for more conversational ones. So I do like to still listen to fitness podcasts, but they're more like, I don't know, I was just listening to JPS. They've been releasing some like, I can't remember what it's called, like gym gossip, I think it's called. And they have Sam, Jacob, and Jackson on there, and they were talking about like essentially like relative intensity and training. And I was like, it's just their experience, and they're talking around like things that are in the industry. So I find that, and then obviously we learn. We say we don't like you edit the podcast, you listen to it intently. I obviously ask the questions, and I have to do research surrounding the podcast. Yeah. So we have that inevitable I always learn something from. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, maybe this is also why we are then not tending to actually listen to podcasts anymore, because we still get the dose that is kind of sufficient. And absolutely.
Like depending on the guest, but sometimes for like a new guest, I've told you before, like it can be. I have to listen to like, I don't know, as many podcasts as I can surrounding the person if I haven't heard them very much before, going through their content on social media. So I'm always like, I inevitably pick up and learn something when I do that. Yeah. It's just like, again, part of the process. So any updates on your end? How's like the injuries? It was just your ankle.
Ankle's still the ankle. I'm wondering, right? Yeah. I'm wondering, and this could just be, I don't know, because I'm too impatient though. I'm just wondering, at some point, if you are going through something like a severe injury, such as, I don't know, twisting your ankle or so, and you never really give it the time that it needs to heal, that you can mess it up so severely, also due to age-related stuff. I don't know, right? I'm not well versed in that kind of area to know the implications of not giving it enough rest when it comes to an injury like this, and how much of it is possibly even age-related. Because to be very honest, whenever people are saying like, I can't really recover from what I've been able to do like in the past, I don't really know what it is that they are referring to yet.
I'm the same. Still young whippersnappers we are.
Yeah, so I know that I can't recover from what it is that I was able to do before, but this was mostly because I was just doing a lot of junk volume. I didn't really know how to train. Yeah. The proper intensity, all that kind of stuff. I can't really compare that to like a younger self or so. And on that note, I can't really see any kind of differences in terms of like recovery, to be honest. Yeah. And that's why I'm sometimes questioning myself of like, when does it kick in that age becomes a problem in terms of recovery? And is something like this would it have healed a little bit quicker and faster if I was younger? And I don't know. I really don't know. So that's the thing that is just going through my mind, just like overthinking by 1,000 times. But yeah, that's what it is at the moment.
I guess you can see Mike Chalice this Friday, or
he
whenever he can assess you.
He has to look at a lot of things on me.
We should record that.
Not in a sexual sense. Sorry for the listeners.
We could actually record that for like, I don't know, so people get an idea of how good Mike is, because
and how crippled
very good.
I am.
Yeah, and how crippled you are, maybe.
Yeah.
But because I had my wrist, the thing I was thinking about is I had my wrist issue as I was bringing up, and actually I'd kind of forgotten about it over the last couple of days because it is just gradually getting better. That's generally my, like, if your ankle is like just consistently 8 out of 10 bad or something, it's like not getting better, then probably something has to change. Whereas if it's slowly like moving from an 8 to a 7 to a 6, I'm like, you're probably okay on the path you're on. But that's my very, like, no experience, no knowledge in the area at all. It's just my experience talking.
This is just us, right? In the sense of like, we're just listening to our body. We have really not a good understanding of like injuries and how to treat those. That is fair. I mean, it's something that you need to acknowledge of what your area of expertise is. And something like this, I have no idea, to be honest. Most of the time, it is not that severe. And often it's a muscular thing where you then can say like, okay, listen to your body. The body will be able to tell you what you can and cannot do at the time being. But in a case like this, you have to refer to a doctor and specialist.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
Yeah, I'm actually thankful because I think, well, we can see it between you and me. A good example. I think you are probably, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Pascal, but I imagine you're just genetically more predisposed to injuries than I am, because I don't think you train like an arsehole. Like, we train with similar philosophies, blah, blah, blah. So, but I get injured far less frequently than you. And I don't know, maybe you're average and maybe I'm like better than average in terms of like, I have big, thick joints and stuff. So I just don't get injured very often. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I say this to athletes where I'm like, we did everything we could have to avoid injury. When you train hard, it's bound to happen at some point.
Yeah. I even said it at some point to one of my athletes of like, take a look at Steve, how often he's injured. Barely ever. And how often I was injured over the past years. And yeah, once again, the training philosophies are basically the same. It's like you said, it's not that I'm training like, I don't know, a maniac going in there just throwing weights around and I don't know, doing kind of CrossFit stuff. And I'm not saying that CrossFit, but our training isn't that different. And yet here we are, I'm getting injured on a more frequent basis. Now, of course, the ankle has or was due to snowboarding. And I would do it again. So, and the trip for next year is already booked. So,
is it? Nice.
Yeah, I hope that my ankle is recovered by then, so that I can re-injure it again for another year. Just imagine that. Oh, fucking hell.
Oh dear. What was I going to say? Man, I need
What's cracking on your end, by the way?
So I was in my active recovery. So I think we spoke about it. Yeah, last time was basically what we spoke about, or one of the main topics we spoke about. So I've just started my new meso. I've just, as we mentioned, I reduced my frequency down a little bit for some muscle groups, particularly legs and chest, down to 2 times a week. So I'm 3 days in because I didn't think I'd be able to get a training session in over the weekend. It's just going to be challenging for me. So I was like, I'll bank a session ahead. And yeah, it's all going smoothly. I was just actually speaking on my story how I think this is when you are self-coached, this is more challenging. When we coach our athletes, it's a little bit easier, especially if you help them with load selection sometimes if they're not used to doing it. But I don't know if this is the same for you, Pascal, but generally you come in week 1 and you're like, I feel fucking good. And like, you are eager to train hard and do lots of volume, but you know that you probably just want to meet kind of minimum thresholds for relative intensity and volume. So you don't want to do too much. So you can keep progressing. That's essentially our kind of where we want to start mesocycle. So I always find week 1 is a little bit of an uncomfortable, like, should I do another set or should I not? Should I go for another rep or should I just leave it here? So it's kind of that. But once that week's done, I'm like, okay, cool. And then I go and then I learn whether or not I was an asshole in week 1, which normally I'm not. And I always just approach it with the idea of, as long as I went in there and I didn't train so hard that I'm like, fuck, next week is even going to be challenging.
Yeah.
Like, that's really stupid. And I know this week and these first few sessions, they've been good. And I think I generally am not good at edging on the side of less than more. I always end up edging on the side of more, but that's me. Do as I say, don't do as I do always. I always end up maybe feeling like I'm always like, oh, what if I just do maybe one more set here? So, but I'd help. Well, my calves, weirdly enough, I program 3 sets for calves. I do 20 reps calves. My calves just go like they're just fucked. And then my next set's 15. So the drop off of 5 reps. I'm just, whatever it is, high rep calf training. My calves, and they're not even, the joke is they're fucking tiny anyway. So it's like, I can't do like more than 2 sets week 1. Otherwise I'll start doing too much. Anyway, so that's where I'm at. It's going good so far.
Yeah.
Like I said, the wrist is getting better. The shoulder, I don't know if I brought it up. Kind of, I knocked it during my active recovery. Doesn't seem to be a problem. So I didn't do anything kind of stupid, which was good.
And when are you starting the new mesocycle? Next week then, after the London seminar? Or?
So I've started. This is week 1.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then you're ready to actually hit the gym with the boys on the weekend.
On Friday, yes.
Yeah.
So you're training legs. I'll be on upper body, unfortunately.
All right.
But
yeah,
that's fine. We don't have to fight for equipment.
No, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, whenever people, we had it in the past and we never really talked about it. I mean, the first time that I came over to London, we both did our training or continued doing just our program, but we went into the gym together and it has always been like this. And I hope that the other people are like that as well, that we're meeting up with, of like, yeah, all right, we are training together. I mean, that just means we are going to the gym together. But
it's
everyone
like,
is doing their stuff.
You go out for a meal and you pick according to your preferences and needs.
Yeah. Good comparison. Yeah, absolutely.
So Harry will be with us and Mike will be with us as well. So I imagine, I don't know, Mike will probably be follow. I know Mike will just follow whatever he's programmed. Harry can't speak of Harry what he'll do. He'll probably go in there and train delts and arms.
IFBB pro Tom Evans. I don't know if he's listening to the Improvement Season podcast. He won't make it on time, so that's good. That's then that I don't have to feel embarrassed that a huge IFBB pro is there and I'm doing like legs as a tiny natty athlete. I'm actually quite relieved about this.
I'm excited to see how you enjoy like the various bits of leg equipment, because it's just so individual. Like sometimes, like I just notice it with things where it can feel really good for one person and then not great for the other. So I've kind of bigged up that the leg equipment's really good, but if you're like, this just feels crap.
The thing is that whenever I went to, for example, MuscleWorks, because you have so much new equipment that it can actually feel quite overwhelming, and the session doesn't really end up being a great session because you have to get adapted and used to that, using that machine. Whenever you're in that groove, you're already kind of moving over to the next exercise. And just like being at a new gym with lots of new equipment, often it doesn't really feel super productive. But this is the start of my overreaching week, so I will try my very best to just like give it my all, just crush the legs, as long as I'm capable of standing for the next day then, because it's then the seminar day. I have to present and I don't want to be up there and need to sit down, because that's just like awful.
I'll come shout at you whilst you're on are you going to do the hack squat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Cybex is good.
Normally, I would have needed to actually have a hamstring dominant day, but I just said like, okay, this one time, I'm just switching it up. Because why not, right? It's just like this one single time. And an SLDL I can do everywhere. So I don't need to actually come to Yorkies to actually do something like this. And if there is equipment like that, I also want to make use of that.
Yeah. Actually, that's a question. I think I asked you in a voice note, but you were, I think, driving and didn't have much time to get back to me. I asked you about dumbbell, like RDLs or straight leg deadlifts, whatever you kind of call them, the same thing, the way we end up doing them anyway. Do you program those often, like dumbbell RDLs? Have you ever done them like for an extended time?
I did them myself, but I've never really had the greatest experience with them, to be honest. I can't really pinpoint as to why that is the case. If you just were to ask me now, maybe it's the positioning, the way that you can load things, and maybe it's also just the dumbbells that are at a gym most of the time. Anyway, I'm programming them often in a metabolite block, because then you can actually load something like a hip hinge when it comes to something like an RDL or SLDL variation with a little bit of a higher repetition range. I feel that RDLs and SLDLs, due to the position of the weights that is in front of you, makes it a little bit harder in those higher repetition ranges to then keep your back straight. If you, though, with the dumbbells, actually slide down on the side of your legs,
that's kind of where you have to go, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're loading, you're having a little bit of a different balance there, and I feel that it's a little bit easier in those higher repetition ranges for then the low back to not give in. What's your take on that?
I don't do it very often, but I could see how that would, and I'm guessing up to like 15 reps. You're not talking like
no,
15,
exactly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I do tend to see that making sense, like when I just think about it practically, and having done, like I did some warm-up. Well, last week I did some like just messing around. A lot of gyms don't have heavy enough dumbbells, so that's often the limiting factor. Yeah. Just like,
that's what I meant with dumbbells.
Yeah. Commercial gyms often only go up to like 40 kilos, and like I can row a 40 kilo now, so I'm not.
Look at him!
I can row over 40 now. So the RDLs, the Yorkies, they go into like, I don't know, 80, 90, maybe 100 kilos. So it's kind of crazy.
Dumbbells.
Yeah, dumbbells. They got really heavy ones. Yeah. So I was like, maybe I'll try a dumbbell RDL and I'll run it, because it felt kind of good, but I have no idea what load to pick. I'm like, I'm guessing it will be somewhat similar to my like total load on a straight leg deadlift, but maybe a bit less. That's like using the comparison of like a bench barbell to dumbbells. Normally the dumbbells are a bit less in some than kind of what you do on the barbell. I don't know. Yeah, but now or you also said that you never use it, and it's making me like, do I really want to try it, or do I want to just stick to the barbell?
I mean, the thing is, when you're using something like the dumbbells, you always want to, of course, have a good reason as to why you're going with something like this that the barbell or machines can't really give you. And especially when it comes to dumbbell pressing. I think, so dumbbell pressing feels amazing for me. It pumps up my chest the way that barbell bench pressing doesn't do it, even though the range of motion is basically the same, because most of the time when you're going with heavier dumbbells, you can't really go even further than this because the chest is kind of in your way anyway, right? So the range of motion is actually kind of the same as the barbell, but yet, for whatever reason, I get a great pump on my chest with dumbbells, whereas when it comes to barbell bench pressing, not so much. So in a case like this, you could easily make the argument for it, right? But when it comes to other things, so for example, also dumbbell rows. Why would you go with a dumbbell row if you have like a huge variety of machines that may give you even a little bit more control and better stability and all that kind of stuff, you know? I think that dumbbells are a great tool that can be used if it's appropriate. And if you're then getting or not getting as much out of the RDLs when it comes to the barbell, or maybe even something like, I don't know, in some gyms there's this deadlifting machine, which is also sometimes a Bulgarian split squat machine. You can also try something like this, or I don't know if Charlie or Mike even ever used something like on a Smith machine. I've never tried it, but something like this. So play a little bit around it. If there is then a good rationale of making that change to something like a dumbbells and they feel great, then why not?
Yeah. I mean, I've never been able to run it, so I was kind of like intrigued to try it and see how they felt, because when I was, for whatever reason, it just felt kind of easier to keep my hips really high and back. So just from feeling it out, they felt great. So maybe I'll try them. There's no harm in trying it, like you said. You got to feel it out. So yeah, I just have to kind of guess what load to use and probably not load them too heavy, which will probably be the way I'm more likely to go, because that's just the way I always end up going.
What's then the long-term plan for you at the moment, Steve? Have you thought about it a little bit more so, or do you just take it as it comes?
Kind of take it as it comes. I'm pretty certain I will have 3 mesos worth of massing before I think about anything different to that. So then it might be a case of a mini cut at that point. That's what I'm kind of thinking, where I'm at 100, like sitting at 190 pounds now. I managed to just maintain weight over the active recovery period, which is great. And that's actually really great because I really didn't think much about food and just ate like completely random stuff, like a lot. Obviously not completely random. I still hit my protein and everything, but I just, if fats went up to like, I don't know, 150 grams, I was just like, yeah, that's what I fancy today. It's fine. Which is a nice kind of change because normally I'm stuffing myself full of fucking cereal all day, which is sounds probably really good to some people, but it gets old. So yeah, the moment I'll probably push into like over that period of time near to 200 pounds. And I think once I'm up near 200, I don't like, it won't look bad, but I don't think it will look amazing. Not that I'm really worried actually about how it looks. It's more so how I feel. And I imagine at that point, I'll start feeling the negative impacts of being a bigger person and having that much body fat. For me, I just have I have a feeling I'm going to start feeling those negative impacts of being that large. And that at that point, I think it's good for me to just, right now, let's mini cut down to the mid 180s where I know I feel really good, and then build back up after that. That's what I have in my head, at least. Yeah,
you brought up a lot of cereals there, and I think that we've talked about something like this ages ago. Must have been like 3 or maybe even 4 years ago, or maybe even 5, when we began doing the Improvement Season podcast. One of my athletes has asked me that question, and I was thinking about it like a little bit more so whether my stance on it has changed over the years, and that is of whether clean versus dirty bulking actually makes a difference when it comes to just like gaining phases. And has anything changed for you over the past years when it comes to this? Yeah, just let me know your thoughts.
Maybe. I think there has to be, I think like, so for example, with me, I'm very on top. I think I'm more on top of than I have been in the past of making sure that I get, like, I aim for 8 to 10 fruit and veg combined a day. So like I get a ton of my carbs also from fruit basically. And like, obviously I'm having 3 or 4 veg every single day as well. And I make sure to keep that, but I'm not sure I ever didn't keep that. However, I can see that maybe some people get into dirty bulking and they kind of remove all of those elements. And I think to a certain degree, some of them might have to be reduced. And that's where you might be able to go to like smoothies, fruit juices, dried fruits. Like I still think micronutrition is important for feeling well day to day, and ultimately will have an impact on your physique. So long term, I think that like the science says it doesn't matter short term, at least, whether or not you eat dirty, like as long as the macros are the same, the physique outcomes are going to be very similar. But for me, I always try and make sure, like I said, to get that micronutrition base, to get that fiber in. My fiber sits at like 60 grams a day. So I don't know if I answered your question there. Basically, I think people can get into trouble if they go down the dirty bulk route very quickly for like, basically, they just don't feel that great after a while. And that has knock-on effects.
What do you think if you meet your requirements for health purposes and everything,
sure,
when it comes to minerals and vitamins, do you then think it will make a difference of actually eating rather clean in terms or in comparison to something like just pure junk?
No, I don't. I think I don't think you get extra kind of benefits once you've hit the amounts you need to hit. I don't think you get more benefits from having more, but I would say people might think of, I don't think you want to aim for the minimum. I think there's still, the range from minimum to maximum benefits is quite large. So like I said, I could aim for like 5 fruit and veg, or maybe even less than that, and still get minimum requirements met. But I want to kind of meet the maximum benefits, which I think is probably closer to 10. And then after 10, you're probably just like, I don't know, your fiber and shit is just going a bit wild, and you're probably getting problems the other way where you're not maybe even digesting all the nutrients that you're kind of trying to get in. So does that answer your question? How do you feel about it?
I'm not entirely certain, to be honest. My gut would say that it does make a difference. But this is also keeping other things into consideration as well. That is like building some rock solid habits of going then into a cutting phase. You're just making your diet a little bit more predictable. Also then the future diet a little bit more predictable. You're not running risk of actually being then highly susceptible of overeating things. It's so much easier than to go above the calories when you're just like eating pure junk in comparison to having just like wholesome foods that you've cooked for yourself and stuff, right? So with that also then in mind, it's like you also said, I think that there is, even though that you may be in a certain range, I have to assume that being on the high end of the spectrum when it comes to minerals and vitamins is simply better than being on the low end, even though that you are in a certain range. Especially when we are doing or considering what it is that we're doing, we are disrupting things. We're using calcium. We are using magnesium in that same process, right? And all of those things, if you have them in more of excess, I have to assume that it's just better, right? It's kind of, I don't know, you're building a house and you barely have the things there that you need to build that house. And then all of a sudden you use too much of one of those things and then you're running out of that. So you have to wait a couple of days in order to continue that building process. Whereas if you have everything there in excess, you can always then, I used too much. No worries, I'm going to use a little bit from my stack that I have here or the reserves. That being said, though, I have to say that I'm also running into a fallacy here of the typical fallacy of looking at, for example, bros, them eating in a specific way and just making the correlation that they eat a specific way and that's why they are big. When in reality, we most of the time know that it's mostly due to genetics and often, of course, due to other compounds rather than just like minerals and vitamins. Minerals and vitamins don't get you up to 300 pounds in the off season, right? So I'm definitely running into that fallacy, but I have a hard time categorizing of how much of a magnitude that an impact that actually plays. I do believe that I said it in the past a couple of times when it comes to a diet, so a deficit, that I think many people would benefit greatly from eating more like a bro, whatever this means. You paint your picture inside your head. I'm also referring to eating mostly clean, things that do satiate you, that are less palatable, less processed overall. And I think that many people can benefit from that in the off season probably as well.
Yeah, I think the old 80-20 rule, if you throw that out there, it applies quite well in these contexts. It's like when you're dieting, that 80-20 means maybe you get 200 calories of discretionary because you're on 2,000 calories. Oh no, sorry. Whatever, that'll be four. Actually, that's probably too many. I'd say 90-10 maybe. Quite often it's probably more beneficial to people. So you get 200 calories of discretionary or whatever, as long as 90% is there or thereabouts. And then when you are massing, I'm on 4,000 calories, so I can definitely go for 400 or 500 calories of discretionary, knowing that the rest of my diet is that really wholesome, quote unquote clean bro-ish food. I think everyone has their different thresholds too. But I think the biggest trap, and I would encourage most people to go down the route you said there in terms of make your off-season eating more similar to your dieting season eating, or your massing eating more similar to your dieting, because for most people that's going to really help. But I do think that could hold some people back. If I did that, if I just focused on all good, wholesome, nutritional stuff, I'd be I can't eat enough food to get past 100. I just end up feeling terrible from the amount that I'd need to eat that way. So, but it's going to be individual dependent in that regard.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
For sure. A couple of things on that note. I think that the higher your caloric requirements for the day, the more you need to play with more processed and palatable stuff. I think, though, that the vast majority of people have no business of actually going there. Often it's more like a craving rather than a requirement or a thing that the body needs, right? That they are then going for that highly palatable stuff. On another note as well is, if we know that eating primarily wholesome foods is good for your health and is primarily a good thing, but we are uncertain to what extent this plays a role when it comes to the ratio between like highly processed things, like let's put it like this, dirty versus clean. Why would you then go for the less uncertain option? You know, when one is quite clear on the outcomes, and the other one we are not fully clear on yet when it comes to the impacts on your gut health, for example, the gut microbiome, all those kind of things, right? And more evidence comes out that something like, for example, artificial sweeteners may also alter and impact your gut microbiome, right? And that possibly then could, if we just make some assumptions, have an impact on the outcomes as well. But as long as those things aren't clear, and we know though that eating primarily wholesome and clean foods is a good thing, then why wouldn't we want to do this? The other one is kind of gambling and hoping for the best outcome. The other one, we kind of know that the outcomes will be appropriate. All right? You see where I'm coming from with this?
Yeah, I think it often people use it as an excuse. Like when they're massing, they get really loose with their nutrition and they lose that diligence and that kind of really wholesome diet that they have. And I think it more should be a case of like, maybe you get there at like peak mass where your diet starts looking like you're just eating a certain way to get the calories in, and it's just like it's not the healthiest thing to be doing, but for your physique goals maybe it's the thing you have to do, and then you get back to like better eating again when you start dieting. Yeah, well, I think for the most part the way I think about it is meet your kind of fiber minimums. Meet your fiber, like get a good serving of fiber. I think the general rule is like 14 grams per 1,000 calories or something. I think that should be easily doable, especially on a mass. Then I like at least 5 fruit and veg, and then maybe a little bit of like the discretionary stuff in there. And I just, because I'm on so much food, I have no reason not to get like 10 fruit and veg in my diet. Like my appetite is still there. I'm still happy eating these things. And it's just a case of, right now I just need like carbs. There's nothing, I would say, I don't really understand why someone would think white rice is better than Rice Krispies.
No,
I'm
absolutely.
Like, they're the fucking same thing, just one's easier to digest and consume. So yeah, but I do see the difference between, I don't know, rice and potato. Like if I'm stuffed and I'm trying to get carbs in, I'm not going to have like a load of boiled white potato. I'm going to fucking, but then you could do stumps, and something I will do is like, because you can keep like the diet like more wholesome this way, roast potato, roast them with a little bit of like 1-cal spray. Like you're still eating potato, it's still like, and you can have sweet potato, and that can be really quite calorie dense actually. I just think some people get really lazy with it and they're like, right, time for Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. Don't go down there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the convenience and the cravings that most people give into, or like not wanting to put in the... Man, I think that just cooking for yourself doesn't really require a lot of time if you do things right and if you have your habits down. If you know what you want, man, I can cook things in just a time span of like 10 to 20 minutes. And I have an amazing meal that I love, and I will be also eating throughout the off season and everything like this. The one thing that I can say, at least from my own personal experience, you know it, Steve, I took care of my nutrition more than half of my life, ever since the age of 14. First, when I reintroduced highly processed and palatable things, I was starting to struggle with my diet, whether it was gaining phase, cutting phase, no matter what it was, right? But this was then most of the hard times where I was trying to squeeze in things that had no place in my diet. And that is not that I have now a massively bad connotation with palatable things, because there are still things that you can easily consume. And I now can easily also consume something like a piece of cake without needing the entire cake. which way back then I wasn't capable of doing, right? Well, what I'm saying though is that often eating those highly palatable and processed things causes some issues for some in the short term, but perhaps even in the long term that we aren't even aware of, such as habit building, cravings, right? It's like the thing that I'm always bringing up. The longer it has been since the last time that you've binged, for example, the easier it will be for you to control your environment. If you've binged yesterday, holy shit, the cravings are freaking high. If you've binged like 5 years ago, chances are that you don't really give into those cravings that you had like years ago. Right? And that is something that I think may also be overlooked. In an off season, yeah, sure, you are well fed, you can get away with eating those things. But if that's then becoming a staple in your diet and also becomes a habit of yours, it may be problematic then once you start dieting and getting leaner.
Yeah, it's for me at least. I'm kind of on like we're almost on opposite ends of the spectrum here, because I'm like at that point where when I come to diet, I'm like, fuck yes, I can remove the fucking Pop-Tart.
Yeah,
I can like remove the cereal, and I can have oats, and I can have my like just keep the base. But you're completely right, because not everyone is like me, and there's a lot of people that are in your situation, and they want to be like someone like myself. Maybe they're like, I want to have 4,000 calories or whatever it is. I want to be eating that thing.
I really do believe that you're the exception. I mean, from the amount of people I work with so far, I haven't yet come across someone who's like you, Steve.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of like the amount of effort and work that you're putting into training. And that is not to downplay the amount of effort and commitment that people put in when working with me. I really don't want to sound like as if people don't really do this. But I think you know yourself, and I think that the audience knows as well, how much you've been putting forth into your training, and that there has even been a time like leading into the last competition season, you've put nearly everything into it that many people can't even do due to their circumstances. Yeah. All right,
man, just to reflect on that for a moment, I can't even imagine spending months wearing a 10-kilo weighted vest, standing all day and doing like 20,000 steps on average. Yeah. It just sounds obscene. Like when I think about it, I feel so lazy right now, just sat here all day. I never use my standing desk anymore. I just always sit.
But that's something, right? And it says something about you. And once again, it's just you're the exception when it comes to those kind of things, rather than the rule. And the things that I've talked about applies more so to the general lifter.
Yeah.
Again, I brought it up in the past. People would be surprised at how many people deal with some type of eating disorder. It may be something that people aren't even aware of. I think when you are incorporating something like heavy cheat meals or so, that is kind of having an eating disorder already, because you are intentionally making the decision of eating less throughout the week to have basically an all-out day as well. That is kind of binging, but a pre-planned binge. Right? And then binging, I think it's even the second or the third biggest issue when it comes to food relationship that people deal with.
Yeah, right? I wouldn't be surprised at all.
And it's one of those, I would say, let's term it now diseases, because for some people it really is a disease where they have to actually seek medical attention about this. That is very much overlooked, binge eating disorder, right? And it applies to so many people, and I think that it has also mostly to do with then incorporating a lot of highly hyperpalatable things and eating and having access to the things that we have like in Western society, and maybe also then an ingrained Western civilized, an ingrained behavioral Western civilized thing. Where it's like, okay, when you go eat out, that means we need to have something like pizza or a burger or whatever, you know? And if you don't do this, if you have a salad, then something's fucking wrong with you.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, this is kind of on the same topic, Pascal, with fat intake during massing phases. I quite often like setting people like a 1 gram per kilo limit, because I find if people are going much higher than that, they are just they get ever more tempted for those high carb, high fat foods, full of saturated fats. It's your processed foods like your cookies, like croissants, your pastries, whatever it is, cheeses. It's like they get all of their fat sources from this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh man, like I can see the temptation because you don't get this freedom during your cut phase, but you don't want to be doing that and filling up your diet with all of that every single day, because that will have like downstream consequences for health as well.
Absolutely. And that's where I'm coming from. I think that the vast majority of people would benefit of eating just like more clean overall, whether it's in a gaining phase, whether it's in a cutting phase, whether it's at maintenance or so. And if you then throw out the 80-20 rule, sorry, but we both know that the vast majority of people don't eat like 80-20. It's just not that. And this is not to actually give people a hard time or, I don't know, offending people or so. It's just a matter of fact, just from at least the people that I've worked with and what I've seen in terms of then the nutrition that they've given me, like the MyFitnessPal entries. And I'm just like, all right, so you're a personal trainer and this is how you eat, for example. A professional who's working in that field, giving out nutritional advice to other people, and that's your meal plan for the day, right? And just from this, I need to extrapolate that when professionals are acting and eating that way, Gen Pop, who don't even have any idea about what a macro is, will probably eat even worse, right? And you can see this. Just go to Tesco's, take a look at what people actually buy. I always feel weird when I actually put all of my quark and cucumbers and whatever on then the machine there, and they're just like scanning it, and everyone else is just like chips, processed soup, whatever, you name it, right? And that's kind of the general outcome most of the time.
Yeah, I think I'm the same with some. I don't look at every single person's. I actually normally try and look at most people's food that they're generally eating on a daily basis. It's rare that I go into everyone's MyFitnessPal, although I'm doing it more and more regularly now, where I'll actually when they start up, I now request a link to their MyFitnessPal so I can look over what they're actually eating. Because they might say one thing and it's like, but do another. And yeah, sometimes I am shocked at the lack of quality nutrition, and like I can count on like one hand, less than one hand. I don't even need a hand to count all like their fruit and veg servings. I'm just like, oh God, this is like basic stuff. Like every meal should contain a fruit or veg, like at least one, like hopefully two. And yeah, people, I think it's a lack of structure, and that structure goes more and more out the window when they're in a gaining phase. And then I'll have people who will then be like, oh, my appetite's so bad during my gaining phase, I have to have like, I don't know, 3 chocolate bars during the day to get the calories in. And I'm like, yeah, but this is because you're eating 3 huge meals a day. What if you spread that over like 4, 5 meals? You actually didn't save all your calories for the evening and actually ate in some like a breakfast rather than save all your calories for like this huge serving, you know? And I think structure takes, again, people just lose, they have everything right and they have all the right stuff during their cut phase, and they lose all of it during their mass. Not always, but some people. And it bites them in the arse, I think. Yeah,
and as always, we're bringing this up. I mean, I've been there myself, and I can always repeat myself when it comes to these things that we criticize. It's not that we just want to actually, I don't know, offend people or give them a hard time or call people out. That's not what it's about. It's about sharing the experiences that we've made over the years, our observations, and what we think, or at least in this case, what I think people can do probably better. And that applies often, from my observations, to the vast majority of the people that at least I've worked with or am still working with. And that's a good thing. I even said to Hugo here today, right? It's all right to not know things. That's actually a gift. And we've said it so often in the past already. Not knowing something and someone making you aware of that is a blessing, because then you know what you then can work on, right? And that's the same here as well. With us talking about it, it gives then people the opportunity to reflect upon it, think about it, take a look at their nutrition and see for themselves of, hey, maybe there's some truth to it. Let me just change XYZ here and see whether things are actually having a better outcome for me.
Yeah, I know. I can remember, and like this is something I did in a cut phase for an extended period of time, or even I might have finished a cut, but I basically just hoard calories to eat like these low calorie ice creams, like a whole tub, but every day. Like, and these would be like for a whole tub, it would be like 600 calories or something. It's like
had it the same, same. And that's what I'm talking about. We've been through most of those things, right? So.
You don't feel good doing that either.
No.
Like the only thing that feels good is that short-term, like consumption of that ice cream, and then you're like, did I really need all of that ice cream? So, no, I didn't.
It's basically like some people cheat. So Katie and I, we are watching, like you guys, a lot of trash, and right now it's kind of Temptation Island. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Temptation Island. It's fun.
Oh wait, no, I have. It's couples, right? Not couples.
It's really fun.
Or is it couples?
Yeah, it's couples, but they are split. So one is in one apartment or kind of one house. The others are in another house, and they are amongst people who need to actually make them cheat on their boy or girlfriend.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Super fucked up, because they are like drunk the entire time, and of course people then give in and do stupid shit. Anyway, what I want to say here is like, in that moment, at some point you may give in, it feels all right in the moment, but shortly after you feel awful about it. And that's kind of the same thing when it comes to nutrition, where it's like, hey, binges feel great in the moment, right? You can't really stop because it's so palatable. It just draws you into that one, right? But shortly after, you feel like a raped victim. Sorry for all the rape victims out there. And that's inappropriate to say. Sorry for that. But you feel like awful afterwards, right? And it was just like that short-term gratification that you've been looking for. Kind of our monkey brain that just drove us to just act upon it, instead of really calming down, sitting down and think about like, do I really need it? Do I really enjoy it? Actually, you don't really enjoy it. If it makes you feel like sorry for that, like a raped victim, right? It doesn't make you feel great, right? In the moment, yeah, cool, yeah, stuff like that, right? But afterwards, it's awful.
Yeah, I'm thankful that I've never, and this just speaks to, again, me being probably on that end of the bell curve. I think most people listening have probably had a binge of some kind. It's never happened for me. I just think it's the way my head is. I don't know, like it's just part of like genetic makeup. I'm just not that way. I've certainly like, I don't think I've had a binge. Like, it's weird even to think, like, it's just never happened.
That's good.
Yeah, it's good.
On that note, we can actually end the show. We're not continuing to talk about the comparison to rape victims. I'm sorry, this is inappropriate, but I couldn't think of anything else. Yeah, couldn't really think of anything else. Sorry for that. The inappropriate comparison. But when you watch this, the London seminar took place already. It was amazing. I can say this already. I'm from the future. It was an amazing event. We had a great time. You can go ahead and purchase then the footage, which will right now still probably be edited and all that kind of stuff. But over on the website, once it's out, you can actually purchase the entire thing. We are also we have recorded the second day as well, the training day. So that is also something that we will put out as well. So lots of things to expect. And guys, thank you very much for being here with us. Hope you enjoyed this time that we've just chatted, right? We didn't really have any kind of plan of what it is that we wanted to talk about. As always, though, if you like what we said, then leave a like, leave a subscribe if you haven't done so already, but I would be very surprised if you're listening to this and haven't really subscribed to our channel yet. But if you haven't done so already, do it. That was always appreciated. And then I guess I'll speak to you guys soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Steve. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.